So last time I introduced you to Darwin's theory, but the thing about Darwin's theory is that it is only a theory until we can actually support his case. So in order for Darwin's theory to stand, we need evidence, as we have acquired, that really proves two parts. First, that species today share common ancestry via we call common descent, meaning we descended from the same common ancestors, much like you and your cousins may have descended from your same grandparents. Um, but in a bigger picture, different species today descended from species that no longer exist but did millions of years ago. And then we need to verify and prove that natural selection is a primary driving force of change. That's because things have changed because of natural selection. So some of the evidence includes the fossil record. So here's, if you will, a very well-known fossil. And what we noticed is that there seem to be many similarities that exist between the fossils themselves. So again, what we were talking like last time, similar plan, spine, rib cage, limbs, the layout, even the skull is quite similar. Even these two guys here, they look quite similar, but obviously some differences, especially if you look at what are the wings. All right, even the feet are somewhat different, but obviously quite similar, just the same. But these fossils are quite similar to fossils, or sorry, the anatomy of species that live today, whereas this is probably one of the ancestors of the modern bat. All right, and obviously they lost such things as their tail, and some bones have changed size and shape, but it shows kind of that transition from one species to the next. It shows how these changes have happened over time. And then this has actually also been used to verify that two different things can share common ancestry. All right, for instance, like this and other fossils could be quite similar to this and showing the changes that existed between the two. The geographic distribution has been used to prove Darwin's theory, and that similar environments throughout the world have different species with similar behaviors and adaptations. So, if we look just in the Americas, all right, we see similar climates have similar traits that exist in both the beaver and the capybara. All right, to be small, furry, and brown works in the forests of North America just as much as it works in the forests of South America, and same thing with things like the muskrat. So it's almost as if different environments demand similar adaptations from its species. And honey. Yes. All right, and then homologous structures is a very popular form of evidence. And basically, homologous structures are body parts of different species that aren't always even used for the same purpose, but do show similarities. So if you look at these different species, the turtle, alligator, bird, and mammal, if obviously strikingly different, but if you pay attention to really their front limb, there's a big bone, two parallel running bones, and three sets of bones that exist beyond that. The alligator, big bone, two parallel bones, and then three sets of bones beyond that. Just as much as it's in the bird and even in the mammal. And if we were to look at our arms, we'd say the same thing. And the important reason why that exists is because they inherited that same basic plan from a common ancestor, which we believe to be kind of a primitive land-based fish of sorts, in which there's a big bone, two parallel running bones, and three sets of bones. And each of these different species inherited that same basic plan, and they obviously evolved differently due to different demands, from walking to swimming to flying to running, you name it. All right, if we go back to the bat here and even look at the human hand, if you took the time to really analyze the way the bat's hand's laid out, it would be strikingly similar, albeit obviously different, just the same, to the human hand. But if you look, there's three. It's almost as if the fingers are laid out very much the same way. All right, because believe it or not, we do share common ancestry with the bat. And this, anyway, if you want to take a moment to guess what it is the front limb of a whale. All right, where there's a big bone, two parallel running bones, three sets of bones beyond that, much like we see in our arm, the wing of a bat, you name it. Again, all because we inherited that same basic plan from the same ancestor. So basically, we all evolved from a common ancestor, but have changed differently due to our different demands: swimming, running, flying, you name it. Vestigial organs is a strong source of evidence. And basically, they're body parts that serve no purpose, but they did in one's ancestors. So the common example for us is our appendix. Our appendix serves no purpose. You can remove it, and your body, you'll be just as healthy with or without. But animals that have it, and our ancestors needed it, and it's to help digest raw foods that we don't really. That's not much a part of our diet anymore. So basically, what happened is because it's not needed, it's basically mutated to the point where it's basically now or not functioning at all, and it hasn't affected our survival whatsoever. Or even if you look inside of a dolphin, you'll see a pelvis, all right, or at least the remnants of a pelvis, because that pelvis is the remnants, is the leftovers of what was once a fully formed pelvis, and the pelvis is for land walking animals, because believe it or not, the dolphin descended from a land walking animal. Embryonic similarities are commonly used to support Darwin's theory, and what we noticed in that even very different species, like for instance, we see the chicken, possum, cat, bat, and human here, albeit at the end, obviously very different, but those early stages, we see similar plans, similar development. And even in us, there appear what are kind of like vestigial gills that obviously disappear and are not used. But we have those because all these different animals here evolved from fish, all right, or some type of common fish ancestor. So we inherit a lot of those same basic steps that occur, and obviously the end result's different, but we develop very similarly within our respective mothers. Again, because we share common ancestry. And last but not least, and probably the strongest form of evidence is the molecular similarities, is that they've noticed both in just general molecules as well as the genes themselves, is that closely related species share many common genes, and they're very similar. So if we looked at the human versus the chimp, genetically speaking, all right, the more closely related you are, the more similar your genes will be, and they are our closest relative. They are 98% us, we're 98% genetically them. But even if you look at a banana, all right, you might be saying to yourself, there's no way, but believe it or not, we share common ancestry with banana, so much so that we share 60% similar DNA and genes. Yeah. Either way, so it's those 6 forms of evidence that primarily support Darwin's theory that we evolved from common ancestors and that we've changed over time because of adaptations, because of natural selection, due to our respective environments.